The non-belief is incoherent omnibus. Number 8. The argument from Occam's razor. Premise 1. An explanation that requires fewer assumptions is preferable to an explanation that requires more assumptions. Occam's razor states that plurality should not be posited without necessity. Premise 2. The proposition not believing P equals believing not P leads to a circumstance wherein, according to action theory, it is assumed that a subject's actions are informed by either believing P or believing not P, whereas the proposition not believing P does not equal believing not P leads to a circumstance where it is assumed that a distinct state of not believing P and not believing not P exists, and that a subject's actions are informed by some other unknown catalyst. We do not have empirical evidence of a distinction in neural activity that would constitute a unique mental state of not believing P and not believing not P. We only have the fallible self-reports of subjects who express their subjective experiences of their alleged absence of belief, self-reports that, under other circumstances, would be dismissed for a variety of reasons. They should be dismissed here as well because they preclude the possibility of the presence of a subconsciously held belief that needn't be logical because it was involuntarily formed by a variety of other factors beyond evidence and reason, including but not limited to beliefs, biases, other cognitive factors, cultural influences, emotions, personal experiences, pre-existing beliefs, and social pressures, and such a preclusion is unjustified. In addition, as belief informs action and an absence of belief provides no impetus for action, non-belief leaves actions of those expressing it unexplained, necessitating another assumption. Conclusion. The proposition not believing P equals believing not P is preferable to not believing P does not equal believing not P.
The argument under consideration fundamentally misrepresents Occam's razor and action theory to dismiss non-belief as a valid cognitive state. It does not simplify our understanding of belief but instead ignores key distinctions that have explanatory power. The verbosity of the second premise only obfuscates the mistakes the author is asking you to share with them. By unpacking these errors and providing concrete examples, we can see that the argument fails to justify its claims and does not, in fact, offer a simpler or better model of belief and action. Let's look at the first premise. An explanation that requires fewer assumptions is preferable to an explanation that requires more assumptions. With this statement, the author is appealing to a principle of simplicity. Of course, this isn't strictly Occam's razor, but there have been a number of renderings of the razor. Let us be thankful the author has correctly not included a clause about special pleading if the razor isn't taken for an axiom. The original principle states, entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily. However, the author's argument doesn't seek to eliminate new unnecessary entities, it simply ignores very valid distinctions between belief states. The positions of believing P, believing not P, not believing P, and not believing not P, are all valid and already recognized in doxastic logic. Ignoring these distinctions does not make them disappear nor eliminate unnecessary entities. The author misapplies simplicity in Occam's razor. The razor does not justify collapsing distinctions that do in fact have explanatory power. The fact that not believing P and believing not P describe different cognitive states means that treating them as identical is an unnecessary oversimplification. Thus, premise 1 cannot justify the conclusion that collapsing these states is preferable. Moving on to premise 2, let's try to dissect this verbose premise to bring clarity to the argument. It seems to make three different claims. 1. If not believing P is the same as believing not P, then action theory explains behavior using a simple binary, people act based on believing P or believing not P. 2. However, if not believing P is not the same as believing not P, then there must be a separate mental state where a person neither believes P nor its negation. And 3. This, number 2, means their actions must be explained by some other factor, which the author is suggesting is an unnecessary complication. Some other unknown catalyst is framed as problematic, the implication being that it needlessly complicates explanations, making the first claim preferable to the second. However, if action theory is the metric we're using to explain behavior, then it already accounts for cases where neither believing P nor believing not P applies. It allows for cases where an agent is undecided, indifferent, or unaware. For example, a juror who neither believes the defendant is guilty nor believes they are innocent can still act, such as voting not guilty due to reasonable doubt. Premise 2 assumes an incomplete model of belief in action theory, failing to recognize that suspension of judgment, not believing P and not believing not P, is a legitimate cognitive state that influences action. Consider a fictionalized example of action theory, Dirty Harry's famous scene where he stares down the sights of his Magnum revolver. After an intense firefight, Harry points his .44 Magnum at a punk who is inches away from grabbing a shotgun. Clint Eastwood, the actor, delivers his line.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But Ian, this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Harry is asking the punk, is the Magnum loaded? If the punk believes the gun is not loaded, believing not P, he might grab the shotgun and resist. If the punk believes the gun is loaded, believing P, he would surrender. But what actually happens is more complex. The punk does neither, he hesitates. He does not commit to the belief that the gun is loaded, but he also does not commit to the belief that it isn't. His hesitation suggests a suspension of judgment, not believing P and not believing not P, he lacks certainty in either direction. This is confirmed when he calls out,
Hey! I gots to know.
I gots to know. This action is informed by the punk's lack of commitment to either belief, by uncertainty, a state that the author's binary model of belief fails to account for. A credence-based model may better explain the punk's behavior. At the beginning of the scene, the punk has some reason to believe that the Magnum isn't loaded. Harry has fired multiple shots. Because of this, he is ready to grab the shotgun in an attempt to resist and escape. However, when Harry gives his speech, he introduces doubt. In the punk's uncertainty, he is unable to act. His credence that the Magnum is not loaded decreases slightly, while his credence that it is loaded increases slightly. Given the deadly consequences of being wrong, his credence falls below the threshold of actionable belief, so he hesitates. Which is likely Harry's personal aim. By creating doubt and causing him to hesitate, psyching the punk out, he prevents the punk from resisting, making it easier to confiscate the shotgun. The punk's hesitation might be explained by the punk in fact believing that the Magnum was loaded and would blow his head clear off. But that wouldn't explain why the punk called out. Under the author's model of binary belief, that would be unexplainable. If he already believed the Magnum was loaded, there would be no psychological motivation to ask. The concept of learning or investigation become meaningless if every proposition were immediately believed or disbelieved. Seeking information would only serve to confirm what one already believes. The scene shows that doubt, uncertainty, and non-belief play a crucial role in action theory. The punk's decision to ask is best explained by a lack of commitment to either belief state, a reality that isn't explained with a false binary. Let's return to the argument at its conclusion. Since Occam's razor does not justify erasing established distinctions in doxastic states, and action theory already accommodates cases where neither belief nor disbelief is present, it follows that the conclusion is unjustified. Attempting to collapse the distinction into a false binary misrepresents both belief and how action theory explains behavior. Understand that the argument is not presenting a simpler explanation for behavior. It, in fact, offers no explanation at all. The author does not explain the circumstances which are better explained by a binary model of belief. They only deny that non-belief could ever be an explanation for behavior. By presenting counter-examples, fictional and otherwise, we effectively dismiss this claim. The ability to suspend judgment, hesitate, or remain uncertain clearly affects decision-making. Ultimately, the argument is flawed. It fails to justify collapsing these distinctions, and does not offer a simpler explanation for behavior.